If you want to help Myth Vision Podcast grow, you can join our Patreon. There are different tiers, as well as help out with PayPal. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Question from In on YouTube. I'm just about done Herman Dettering's The Fabricated Paul. Quite an adventure. After having read your ACA, my understanding is that Detering sees Paul himself to be a legend, but not a legend invented by Marcion, his followers or teachers, just one co-opted and expressed through what he, Detering, sees as likely their creation of some of the Pauline canon, excluding the pastorals, ? Am I reading him right? If so, do you know where he thinks the actual legend began? With Simon Magus? ? With the Gentile Paul of the Ethiopian Acts? If Paul is a legend, whence the Paul of the so-called Orthodox Fathers, i.e. the Latin Tertullian? Get well soon, Dr. Bob.
Well, as I remember, Detering is saying that there was a historical Simon Magus who did preach salvation by grace and was a Gnostic, and that he was considered by the Church Fathers the father of heresy. And just as Paul, quote unquote, was considered the father of Gnosticism by the Gnostics, and that both characters are associated with some of the same people, even in Acts and in Josephus, with Drusilla and Bernice and Festus and Felix and all of that. And so that there was a historical character, but it was Simon Magus. And I kind of forget what Detering said about why the two names, but he has an interesting argument that Paul is kind of a title based on something in Gnostic mythology. I can't remember it offhand. And that Marcionism is a kind of quasi-Gnostic Paulinism. I forget how he connects it with Simon, or if he does, because I may be thinking of Stephen Huller, not the guy on the West Coast with the Gnostic Church, who was a fascinating writer. A Jung scholar and a Gnosticism scholar is really great. But our buddy, I think in Florida, who has all these fascinating theories and so on, well, he says that the heresiologists say that, that Simon had a disciple called Marcus, who was called the magician. And that he says, why isn't this Marcion, little Mark? And in The Amazing Colossal Apostle, I say, yeah, I bet you that's right. And that's why Marcionism is already kind of domesticated in an Orthodox direction, that they weren't absolute Encratites. If you were married when you joined, don't get divorced. It's kind of like in 1 Corinthians 7, but otherwise don't get married. And that he wasn't as staunchly or extremely Gnostic as far as we know. He did have a two-God theology, but we don't know if he believed in emanations and all that stuff. So I suggest that Marcion was beginning to domesticate Simonian Gnosticism, and then Catholicism is a later stage in the same process, and that they're combining elements of Gnosticism, that is, Jesus as the earthly appearance of a prior heavenly being, and sacraments, which some Gnostics had, but interpreted in a completely spiritualist way. I don't know if Simon is said to have had any or not, but that's what's going on, and we see Paul being domesticated in the Acts of Paul, as MacDonald suggests in his great book, The Legend and the Apostle. He shows how the pastoral epistles and what Winsome Monroe calls the pastoral stratum in the other epistles of Paul's, supposedly, and Acts try to Judaize and Catholicize Paul. And so you're getting a progressive domestication of Paul, and by that time, in order to incorporate material in Acts, they had to split the character into two, the good Paul and the bad Paul, and that both were originally Simon Magus slash Paul the Apostle. So that's, I understand Herman Detering to be saying something like that. He was carrying F.C. Bauer's theory about identifying Simon Magus with Paul a step further. And I think maybe I carried it a little bit further, but Detering was, in my view, the greatest biblical scholar of our generation. It's such a loss for him to be gone. There's still other amazing ones like Margaret Barker, but this guy, at least for the New Testament, astounding.